Anamari Fanthorpe, and I'm going to be your host today. Today, we have the formidable, the epic legend of marketing, Luke Ryan, here from Cure JM for Liam. And we're going to be talking about using modern marketing to fundraise and raise awareness. Now, this is a charity, nonprofit organization that you run, or you work in collaboration with Cure JM. But you have a massive background in marketing. So I want to hear a little bit about your story first, because I think that really sets the scene of how you got involved in this area and how you used your skills to kind of cross over into what was happening in your life. So Luke, welcome to Digital Boost. We're so excited to have you here today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Anamari. Really pleasure to meet everybody on the team here, the family at Digital Boost. I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with everyone today. So background-wise on myself, I've been in the media and marketing space for over 20 years now, basically right out of school, jumped right into the media and marketing world. I've been in media ad sales, digital media marketing, as well as broadcast, both TV and radio, for, as I was mentioning, about the past 20 years, with about 12 of that in TV. So kind of my background history there, I was on the sales side, the marketing side. I was able to work on a lot of different large campaigns across the country, as well as regional marketing campaigns using every tactic that's really available out there. And where this kind of intersects with the nonprofit world is that my son Liam was diagnosed at age 4 with a super rare autoimmune disease, unfortunately a life-threatening autoimmune disease that affects 1 in 500,000 kids. Basically, he went from being a full-speed active child, kind of jumping around the house, doing Power Ranger kicks, as you'd expect with any child. And within a few short months, he got to a point where he couldn't put on his own clothes, couldn't get up off the floor on his own, got to a point where he actually couldn't even pick up his own head. He'd be in the middle of the night saying like, "Hey, Daddy, can you move my head?" And it was wild. It was a very scary time. It was, the undiagnosed period is brutal. And my wife and I were seeing every specialist that we could. I definitely credit her with saving my son's life, because she just did not quit. And every answer that was, "Sorry, I'm not seeing something here," or, pushing us in a different direction, she was right on it. So luckily we got to a diagnosis within, roughly 3.5 months or so. And he started a pretty aggressive treatment. Where that went was we basically went from him basically not being able to use his whole body because the immune system was tricked into thinking that his healthy muscles, tissues, joints, ligaments, and skin were foreign invaders, and it was attacking, on the inside that we could not tell, other than just some skin irritation, that type of thing. And then where that kind of fast forwarded to was we were at the cancer treatment facility, because they didn't have a specific autoimmune treatment facility at a hospital here in the Boston area. And we were able to start treatment immediately. And we saw some pretty dramatic results once we started high dose steroids, IVIG, which is a infusion that he's had over 120 of these all day infusions, as well as some low dose chemo drugs that help suppress his immune system. So it's been a wild journey. He's doing dramatically better than where we were at. And kind of where this all kind of intersects with my media and marketing background is that I remember pretty vividly. It was, I think, the second night we were there in the hospital. You don't really sleep much. You kind of sleep in shifts, between myself and my wife. And he was asleep. I was laying down at the end of the bed, kind of had my legs crunched up on one of the chairs, because you don't really have a whole lot of space in the hospital room. And I'm just on my phone researching as much as I could about this disease that we'd never heard of before. And I came across a blog for a young adult who had gone through, this process and this disease, and read a lot about it. And, from there, I was just like, this is it. This is my mission. So basically, we have this unique skill set, and we're going to tell our story in the biggest, platform possible, shine a spotlight on this so other children don't have to be in the undiagnosed period as long as they need to be. And also just to help others with, advocacy and awareness, and make them feel less alone.
Yeah, it's quite a remarkable story. And, you gave the statistic that 1 in 500,000 people, are struck by lightning a year. And that's the same, for a child being diagnosed. So it's so rare. Shining a spotlight is great because I believe that some of the symptoms, it was just a rash on your elbows and like a rash on your belly or something like that. Like there was really almost no symptoms that you would think for some child that was that young, that you would, think that was such a rare disease. Now, how long, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about how long you've been in this process of raising awareness and fundraising. I'm going to open up the chats. So if you can tell us a little bit about how long you've been working on this, and maybe then we evolve into some of the techniques that you're using in order to raise awareness and how that crosses over with your skill set as well. So I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah, happy to. So Christmas of right before 2018, so like Christmas of 2017, we had not seen any noticeable change in our child at all. And then January of 2018 is when we first started saying like, hey, there's something up here, and kind of talking together as a family, myself and my wife, just kind of comparing notes, because he was going from full speed running around the house to saying, hey, I can't go up the stairs tonight. Could you carry me? And, hey, I can't put on my clothes. Can you help me out with that? Or he's at school and he's, doing playing duck, duck, goose. And he's saying, hey, can you bring a chair over? Stuff like that, where we're like, something's up. And we weren't quite sure if it was, we also have a daughter who at the time was a baby, and we weren't sure if that was, maybe a way of getting attention, that you're seeing the baby getting carried everywhere. So maybe, that's something that, he's looking for attention that way. But it got weirder and weirder. He would talk about, there's ice in my ankles, there's fire in my knees, there's, my legs don't work, but then his legs would work. And it was just this constant, like, playing detective, really, as a family, trying to figure this thing out. We went to dermatology originally because the rashes were on his knuckles, on his elbows, his knees, and then he has like a butterfly rash on his eyes as well too. That's probably the most telltale sign of it, but even still, it didn't like look like it was that off. I mean, it looked like he had a rash on his face, but it wasn't like, oh man, these two things are totally connected, meaning the muscle fatigue and the rash as well too. But basically went to dermatology, went to hematology because, we thought, oh, maybe it's a low iron situation. We went to neurology just to see if this is maybe something more behavioral. Each path kind of led us to another specialist. And eventually, luckily, we got to a dermatology team where one of the dermatologists had read a paper in college about this disease, juvenile dermatomyositis. It's a mouthful. And luckily, because he read that paper, it led us down this path and ultimately got us to a diagnosis and a much better life. So that's kind of where that media and marketing aspect, I look at it and I go, this is a marketing challenge. A lot of these nonprofits, they're just families doing the best they can, juggling a challenging situation in their own household, but then also saying, hey, I'm going to, kind of do the best job I can in terms of grassroots do-goodery. It just so happens that I come from a media marketing background where I'm like, this is a challenge we can solve. And so we've done a lot. So in that time, we've created a website, Cure JM for Liam with the number 4. I'll show that off. We've been on the news, probably 9 times. We've done a lot of collaborative charity events with Boston Children's Hospital, with another nonprofit called Team Impact, which matches college sports teams with chronically ill children. Each one of those, I kind of have this similar process of like seeing the end result and then putting a plan in place where I can achieve that goal and kind of seeing how it all intertwines. Write the press release before you even kind of create this event, for instance, is kind of the way that my mind works. So there's been some really neat things that have happened since. I'll start with this. Okay if I play a video first? This is a news story that'll kind of give you a good overview for about 4 minutes here. And then we'll jump into the presentation deck. Is that all right?
That would be great. Thank you.
All right. So let me do that. I'm just going to share sound. All right. I'm just going to back this up in full screen it here.
Okay. Looks good.
Juvenile myositis is so rare, 1 in 500,000 children are diagnosed with the disease every year. JM is a life-threatening autoimmune disease in which the body's immune system attacks its own cells and tissues. JM also affects girls twice as much as boys. The Ryan family never heard of it. Now they're part of that 25% group where the disease strikes kids 4 and under.
Always leave my note.
High energy, ton of fun, the nicest kid you ever meet.
Super friendly, active little guy.
Nice.
That's how Luke and Liz Ryan describe their son, Liam. Over the weekend, Liam celebrated his 5th birthday surrounded by his friends and family. But getting to this day has been anything but a celebration.
Yummy.
These pictures tell the story of the superhero lover young life. For the past 8 months, Liam has been in a battle with his own body to survive.
In January, we noticed a rash that appeared on his face, kind of like a butterfly rash, and some dots on his knuckles that were kind of like, they looked like warts.
That rash quickly appeared on other parts of Liam's body, including his elbows. After a trip to a dermatologist, the Ryans got another red flag.
The changes that were very monumental.
Liam was starting to withdraw from home and even school activities.
He was just sitting out of physical activities, and he would ask to be carried regularly, so we didn't really know what that was.
The Ryans were puzzled. In December, they say Liam's checkups were all clear, 100%. Then one night in March, Luke says they got another sign something was terribly wrong.
He woke me up 5 times in the middle of the night to say, "Daddy, can you please move my head?" He wasn't physically able to lift his own head up because his neck had atrophied.
The Ryans rushed Liam to the hospital to get checked out. After a 3rd visit with his pediatrician, they got the news every parent fears. Liam's symptoms mirrored a very rare disease, juvenile myositis, or JM.
It's astonishing because we don't have anything in our family history either.
Juvenile myositis is a disease in which the body's immune system attacks its own cells and tissues. The primary symptoms are a skin rash and muscle weakness, and there's no cure for the disease. And because it's so rare, there's very little research being done to find a cure.
There's only one, like 2 to 4 new cases every year. It's very rare.
Pediatric rheumatologist Dr. Julia Zhang says some kids with JM show symptoms at different ages.
This is an autoimmune disease, and it's not always predictable. So sometimes flares, meaning the inflammation can come back.
Dr. Julia says if caught early, JM can be treated.
Some kids can be doing really well and medication-free.
The Ryans say Liam's condition has come a long way since his diagnosis. While his physical appearance has changed because of the steroids and medication, they say his joy for living hasn't. Now their mission is to find a cure for JM.
This is not a disease that gets much attention, right, from the big pharma. It's just how it goes.
And they are hoping to change that.
Never something we want to happen to us, but we're very committed to making awareness.
That was Liam with his baby sister Olivia, and as I mentioned in the story, there's no cure for JM, and because it's so rare, there's very little research being done to find one. That's why the Ryan family is holding an event this weekend, hoping to help raise money to fund more research for JM. This event is this Sunday from 10 to 1 at King's Bowling in Burlington. For more information, head over to our website, boston25news.com. I'm Daniel Miller, Boston 25 News.
For just $67, you can make as many.
Such an impactful video. They've, story. They've done such a great job with it. And, that's just one of the many bits of coverage that you've managed to get for this rare disease. And it's also, one of the many different forums that you've used. Like you've used everything from radio to TV, to events, live events, all kinds of stuff. And now we're going to get into, for all of you who are looking to create that change and spread awareness and fundraise, we're going to start to talk about some of the techniques that you use in order to do that based off of your background in marketing. So really excited to delve into that.
Absolutely.
So please, guys, if you've got questions, drop them in the chat. It'll be really great to get questions throughout the session. I've got all the chats open across social media. So here we go.
Perfect. And when I share this, is it sharing one single image? Okay, perfect.
Yep,
just
we're good.
So this is just the screenshot of our homepage here. He's a lot older now, but this was a picture of him early on. And I like to just kind of simplify it to a single story. We're not our own standalone nonprofit. We support a nonprofit called Cure JM, or the Cure JM Foundation. We're actually going to Washington, D.C. This coming weekend to go to the national conference, which is going to be amazing. And we're both, my wife and I are on the board as well too. I oversee the family fundraising committee, which is basically kind of helping a lot of the grassroots do-gooders around the country with their own events, and kind of giving my advice and experience of what we've done since we kind of kicked off in this journey. So jumping in to just overall, like, how do I look at this? I look at it just in the simplest form of story and strategy. What's the story we're going to tell? Who's the target audience for the story? What actions do we want them to take? And then from there, kind of how are we going to measure that to do more good on top of what we're already doing? So it really comes down to first commitment, because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. To be able to effectively tell that story to a large audience continuously with new content, keeping them involved in your life. You have to be open to that too. You have to be open to kind of sharing your life as well too, both the good and the bad, and kind of everything in between. But it's just that consistent commitment as a family, because you want it to be one unified front as a family. It can't be something that just one person's pushing out there alone. It just wouldn't work. So we're all on board. And then, this is just out there for anybody really. It's just take us on your journey. You don't have to feel like every piece of content needs to be really polished, in the sense of like, having a marketing team, put together these really high impact ads. It's more about just taking them on your journey and showing them a little bit more about your life and the life of, in this case, our son, and kind of what he goes through, but also, things that are well outside of the disease. He's a skateboarder. He loves swimming, loves Beyblades. So like the more that we can kind of tell those stories, and I'm just a geek for production equipment. So I have literally a home studio and stuff. So we're always doing something fun and unique and different. We'll talk a little bit about social media best practices that we've been brought into, the power of your smartphone, just how there's just so much power that's really in this supercomputer that's in each of our hands, and what you can do with that. And then also we call them fundraisers, but it's basically a fundraising event, but just turning it into just an over the top, out of control spectacle. Coming up actually in July, we're doing a murder mystery backyard party with a kids carnival. So we always kind of step it up from the last time we've done something to what could be something big, bold, and different. It helps with getting people energized. It helps with just having another beautiful memory as a family, helps with fundraising, helps with media attention, because, news wants to cover typically something that's big, bold, and different. And also, of course, a local community feel-good story too. And if you write that press release effectively, you typically can get coverage. And then I'll give you a little bit of resources, and of course, jump into the Q&A too. So my background, 20-year veteran in media, been a digital media strategist on the regional, national side, radio, TV, digital, experiential, just basically everything you could do marketing wise. I have some experience in it. And then also, I'm also a big AI and technology enthusiast. So there's things that I'm doing now with the cutting edge of what's available with generative AI in terms of how to kind of level up our content, create social calendars for posting, write press releases. Just it's amazing what's possible with AI. So I can definitely jump into that and have that conversation with anyone as well. I've actually trained up over 500 people now on how to use generative artificial intelligence in their business life. So starting with why, Simon Sinek style, that's just super important, because you really just want to have that at the foundation of what you do. And for us, it's him and every other kid like him, in the sense of, how can we help tell his story to audiences and family and friends, and just, it's amazing what just that alone can do. But just being, consistent with that storytelling and just making it something that's fun and engaging for everyone to be a part of. I'm definitely not somebody that, is like, oh, woe is me, or even my son or any of my family in that way. It's more, how do we tell this story in an effective way, in a positive light, and just do the maximum amount of good that we can. And then, in terms of taking us on your journey, as I mentioned, it's less about creating content. It's more about documenting your life as a family, powering through adversity with grit and positivity. So I like that. I think that's a strong statement as far as what you do when you're telling that story continuously. And we document his life, all of our lives really. But, here's an example of picture on the left. He's getting an infusion at Boston Children's Hospital. We would play video games. He'd have his buddies from the Bentley Falcons football team that he's a part of as well, too, through another nonprofit. That's what that picture is in the bottom right corner here, of him getting drafted onto the Bentley Falcons football team and dropping a puck, and just a big media spectacle as well too. And then just kind of just sharing our journey there. Social media in general is just incredibly powerful. If you're using it effectively, you can really, it's a force multiplier in terms of getting your message out there. I'm sure all the businesses on here are using social media regularly, and some of those practices that we integrate into our social media are focusing on our favorite ones. We use most every one of them, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn actually is one of the ones that I probably get some of the most traction with as well too. Sharing those micro moments in life, not having to feel like you have to create big pieces of content, more just like continuously. And then of course, having like a big anchor thing that you're talking about and leading up to, and then doing recaps of after. Tagging influencers and businesses. So if you're going to be for instance, the picture on the right was a Boston Pride Day. We tagged Cure JM, we tagged Boston Pride. We're out there, having a good day in Boston. It gets shared on both of those accounts. Now that's a few extra thousand people that we wouldn't have been able to reach without those tags as well too. And then of course, using hashtags that make sense related to the events you're at, or, the kind of the movement you're a part of. And then attending events and introducing yourself to the organizers. That's key. Really getting out there and kind of networking yourself, especially at a big event. Like, it was fun for me going to an event one time that was business related, and the CEO of Boston Children's was there. I had a chance to just walk up and meet her after, and I started talking to her, and I said, "Oh, I do a lot with the Children's Miracle Network, and my son's a patient advocate." And she's like, "Oh, who's your son?" And she knew my son's entire story. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, the CEO knows my son's entire story. So that was pretty empowering to know that your story got out there in a big way. And then just being consistent about just sharing your story regularly. So a couple highlights here. This is just some, different things where I always kind of look at, the stats behind the posts. So like, this is just an IVIG day where the Bentley Falcons came. That was cute, raised some money for the Cure JM Foundation with an award I won. So I like to post that as well too. These are in the past, but we've done a ton of things since then as well too. When it comes to your phone, a quote that I heard from somebody recently was document fearlessly, but share selectively. I capture a heck of a lot more content than I post. And sometimes I can go back to that. I'm a big geek for 360 video. So I own like pretty much everything that Insta360 makes. So happy to talk about that at some time, because the cool thing about 360 video is you could leave it at an event rolling. You can bring it anywhere with you, and you can go back to that footage and capture and just go, well, what was there? What were the things I, missed out on, and that I can turn into a new piece of content too. And you can do some really fun stuff with it too. It's probably the most creative medium, I think, out there. Using, different apps in the phone, goal setting, brainstorming, that's just more, useful in any business setting, but just to have a clear path of where you want to go, and what you're going to do to get there. And then of course your phone is more than just a phone. It's a supercomputer / camera / videography, interviews. You can do most anything with it really. And just a couple accessories, you're in good shape. And then of course, like we're doing right now in this interview, is going live, not being afraid to put yourself out there and go live on, all the big platforms. And, I'm sure a lot of folks have experience doing that too. So a couple more pictures here, just, letting him, I take a lot of his quotes that he says throughout the day, and I'll turn them into posts as well too, which is cute. And then just big life moments as well. I had a couple events that I wanted to kind of give the audience a little bit of an overview for. So the first event that we did was called the Bowl to Cure JM. It was a bowling event, but not just a bowling event. It was over the top. It was crazy. It was like hundreds of people there. We turned it into this like, kids carnival type atmosphere. We had a ton of news stations there. We did it right. It was a really big event. I think we raised $50,000. So that was
Luke, that's a lot of money, $50,000 to raise in like one event. What did you do to promote the event? Because it's all about getting bums on seats, or bums with bowling balls, I guess. How did you get people to the event? What did you use in order to get that rolling? And maybe you're going to talk about that next, but I know that a lot of folks like to do live events now that we've opened up. So that might be some really good things to kind of talk on for a moment.
So I'll usually start with writing the press release before I even do anything. And I know that sounds somewhat counterintuitive, but I like to do that to start, because then if I can get it down into a 1-pager or a 2-pager, then I know every single thing that I need to do beyond that. Then I'll take that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
slow it. I want to talk about a press release because we actually haven't talked about that here on Digital Boost. What are the key components of a press release that you focus on when you're going to submit that?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I'll skip ahead 2 slides here. I grabbed a couple examples. So the left side, well, my left, is an event that we had called Gaming to Cure JM, and he's a big video gamer. So we took over a whole, space that had all sorts of video games, both desktop video games as well as virtual reality racing simulators, and we just took it all over and did a takeover event there. So typically, it starts with the contact information. This is actually a format, because I worked in TV, that I borrowed directly from the press releases that were coming out from the press release agencies that were sending them to us, and then just basically turn it into my own. So, immediate release, the contact information. I had my wife's contact information there, and then basically where the location is, when the event time is, so they know if they're going to send out. Sometimes they don't tell you if they're going to come or not, or it's just a decision on that day, depending on what the other news is of that day. So usually all bold and all caps for your main title. In this case, I wrote local Lexington boy with extremely rare disease to host epic video gaming fundraiser event. And then beyond that, it was events benefiting the Cure JM Foundation, the global leader in juvenile myositis research. And then I tell his story, meet Liam, meet our family. And then I ended with a quote of mommy, last night I had a dream that I woke up without JM, which was just, it's sad, but it's cute, but really that ties it together. And then I have our email address and both websites as well on there too. And then the one on the right, similar model, but that's basically one we did for a big over the top, another fundraiser as well.
That's great. Okay, so then once you've done this, you've kind of written your press release, then you go ahead and you contact the newspaper, or and how do you get the venue, like all of that kind of stuff, would be useful. So, what kind of content you create before the event? Yeah.
We've done events where we throw it ourselves, like in our yard. That's a big ordeal. That also is weather dependent, and that's what we have coming up. It's a bigger challenge, but it also is pretty satisfying too when you kind of pull it all off yourself. If it's a venue, usually it starts for me with a relationship. So in the case of the bowling event, I had a friend who was the director of marketing for the venue. So it worked out great because he knew our story, and then we just put our heads together and he brought his whole team in, and that was amazing. There's no way we could have pulled it off without that whole team, because they have, their team working it. We make sure that we understand what the costs are involved. So it's basically building a business plan, and then how many tickets you need to sell, what you need to make in raffle prizes. And then you kind of go around with your flyers, which actually would be, we also create press releases and flyers. So this is more of your guerrilla marketing. And you're kind of going into physical businesses and meeting with people there and telling them about what you're up to. And also, this is what you can send together to the media. So we would basically go to radio stations, record a PSA, public service announcement, and get that on the air, because usually they have community access stations that will run a promotional bank of inventory, and you get that out to the audiences in that way. TV is a little bit more challenging because you need to have the video creative for that, but I can create that too. So I usually send that out. That usually doesn't get as much coverage, but the TV station sometimes will show up and record the story if it's something that they think was in line with what they want to get out there on the air. So yeah, press release, flyers, straight up just like Evites and Eventbrites and whatever site you want to use. We use those all the time, to sell tickets, to send out to friends for Evites, and then use all the social media sites regularly and constantly create new content to kind of keep telling that story and promote it.
So are you using the events, like when you create a post on social media and it's for an event, do you create it as an event on the social media page so that they can link through and go straight through to register for the event? Is that how you're doing?
Yes, but I'd say ultimately I want to push them to, we use Eventbrite because that's where it usually would be the closest point to having the donation / buying tickets. But I do create a Facebook events page, and then we'll usually it's only on Facebook. I don't think I use events in any other way. I'm sure there are on other social sites, but usually all the other sites I'm just using just regular posts and that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm just going to grab Eventbrite as a thing. I'm not sure how much we use that here. I think we do. So I'm just going to grab that link. You can continue on. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I mean, I'll jump ahead here. Is jumping into just some tips and tricks related to those events. I'm all about, kind of manifestation, turning your ideas into reality. So it's, I may not be the best artist when it comes to painting a mural, but I am pretty darn good at this. And usually I'll see it through entirely in my head, maybe with just myself or with my wife or with someone, other folks we're collaborating with. And then I'll know how to build it from that point. So it's almost like when an artist says, "Oh, I saw it, then I painted it." Same kind of thing in this space. So an example of that is we did a second bowling event where I knew that my son was going to get a Make-A-Wish. So, and I knew that he was going to be going to Disneyland. But before we revealed it to him, I thought it'd be pretty cool because we had this event coming up, and they had a Make-A-Wish sundae as a dessert that they carried at the event. Myself and my friend over at the bowling venue basically orchestrated this big reveal that we knew that would get on the news if the news were able to come. And basically I had him and his other Bentley Falcons football team bust through like a paper, like you see like football players kind of break through that to run out to the fields. So we had him bust through that. It was super cute. He comes out, and then we're I'm on the microphone and talking about the event, and we're talking with the executive director of Cure JM and what all this fundraising and the impact means to the community. And then I had to cut him off, which he knew ahead of time, because we had a special call coming through, and the special call was from Mickey Mouse. And I definitely violated a bunch of copyright laws, but I hired a Mickey Mouse voice actor from Fiverr to read a script in Mickey Mouse's voice about him getting his Make-A-Wish. And it just blew the whole roof off the place, because he's now gets the Make-A-Wish. The news is covering that like crazy. That's every part of the story that goes out there on the news, the local paper, 3 TV stations, just got a ton of good coverage in that way. And it was started with an idea, and then you just kind of make it a reality. So, it was one of my favorite things in life. Honestly, it was just so cool to kind of see it all the way through. The other thing too is accepting help. I'm myself, my wife, we have big ideas, but there's no way these things get executed without a really good group of friends and family. Day of, they know that they're going to get put to work. It's just what happens. You come up and visit me, you're putting in a solid day's worth of work. You're either running raffles or concessions or what it could be as easy as decorating or setting up things too. It's just, there's a lot of things that need to happen. And everyone wants to come up, they want to help, but let them, and say, okay, now you're in charge of X. You're in charge of X. It's like you might have a couple core people, and then putting those core people in charge of a area or a station, that kind of thing. Super important. We're for the event we're coming up to in July with this murder mystery backyard party. We're gonna have stations all over the yard, and we're gonna have QR codes on pieces of paper that are laminated in the yard on a stick. So that way you can come up and you can scan to learn the game, whether it's a carnival game or a way to win tickets or prizes. That way we don't have to put a physical person there to explain it every time. It's like it can jump over to a video or to a one sheet or whatever. And you can put those all up over the yard. That's a new idea. So it hasn't been tested yet, but I think it's going to work because everyone's so used to using it.
We're so trained with QR codes. I mean, we know when we see one, it's almost like you grab your phone and you're like, I'm going to scan this to see what it does,
Yep.
So I think, yeah. And it's going to be really exciting with AR coming through, and that auxiliary reality and that real experience that we're going to be able to have with lots of different, physical objects that are going to come to life with, this other part of reality. So yeah, so what a great tip.
One thing where I haven't told my wife this part yet, but I thought it'd be fun because the nonprofit started with their first event being a lemonade stand. I thought it'd be fun to have a lemonade stand, but then like the video of the lemonade stand, just, the kids just having their little lemonade stand. And then it like zooms through and then up, and then there's a whole carnival crazy, party that you wouldn't believe was right behind it. And having little, hand-drawn lemonade stand things all around the neighborhood and on the major streets. And with a QR code and saying, come by. And then when someone just comes by for the cute lemonade stand, they're like, what is this? Like, that's the kind of the reaction I want to have, like almost like Willy Wonka style, where they're like, this is not what I expected today at all. And I'm hanging out, and then they'll
absolutely
spread the awareness and take pictures and all that kind of good stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great historical reference of where you've come from, where they've come from as an organization to where they
Mhm.
are now. And what a great way to kind of celebrate that, that growth. Hmm.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. It's paying tribute because we are not the first family to come, get hit sideways with this, nor are we the ones that built the nonprofit. We're just a family telling our story in the best way we can. Absolutely. Couple of things this is more just in the business sense, is actually creating marketing collateral and doing it on the upfront, and then basically knowing what that is. If you're familiar with, say, ChatGPT, it'll write it all for you. If you can just straight up put in all the information about your event in there, and then say, okay, help me organize this, turn it into a press release, turn it into a media deck, all sorts of different things, flyers, verbiage for social media posts. I'd say that's probably the biggest development, is in the last few months of just having AI now part of our lives. Just use it. It supercharges everything, makes it so much more efficient and easy. And it may not get you 100% of the way there, but it'll get you 90% of the way there in no time at all. So definitely highly suggest that. We talked about press releases, so I won't really spend too much time on that. And then just doing a promotional timeline, knowing when you want to do certain things along the way. When are you going to hit all the businesses downtown? When are you going to do the social media posts and that type of thing? Don't be too rigid with it, because otherwise you think of it as a job. It should be fun, but just having a good structure to it makes a lot of sense too. And then I'd say more than half of our money that we were able to raise came from sponsorship, like actually having sponsored decks, knowing that yes, the sponsors are doing it because they know you and they love you and they want to help support, but also give them value, saying that they're going to be included in the recap video that's going to reach 10,000 people. They're going to have signage or a booth space or whatever it might be at the event, and they can speak, that kind of thing. That's all pretty important too. And then lastly is just have a ton of fun. That's just number one thing. If you can have your family having a blast and do it around what, in this case, our son's really into, it makes all the difference in the world, because then they can get supercharged about it and tell everybody about it and have a great time. So a couple things that I also put in here too are resources. I could show you a couple of these sites. We could do that, during maybe the Q&A session, but Noam is a kind of a unique site. Not many people know about it. Noam.com. If you do want to create a new brand, this is a great site to be able to look up, is that URL available? Is every single social media site available with that same handle? And you just do it with just a quick search. And I don't know any other tool that does that. So it's free. I know they have a paid service, but I've been using it for many years now, and I think it's just a great little hidden gem. Facebook Blueprint is just more about education. HubSpot is the same thing. Parker Dewey is great for micro internships. That might be a US only thing. I'd have to double check, but it's just there might be something similar in New Zealand, but basically it's college students at business schools that will do micro internships for a few $100s on any, particular like marketing topic, that type of thing, to help you out with scaling up. And then LinkedIn, of course, YouTube, there's a bunch of different things, Udemy. And the last one was ChatGPT. And then this particular plugin called AI PRM, which is a plugin that is an overlay to Chat's normal AI, where you can actually have it through prompt engineering, create some really compelling content for you with just quick little, verbiage that you put out there. I could show that live if you wanted to see that too. And then just gear. This is just some stuff that's just in my studio / in my bag all the time. Highly recommend the Rodecaster Pro 2. It's great. It's right next to me right here. Awesome for audio. Insta360, which is the camera right in front of me right now. The link, that's a webcam, but it's 4K and it can follow you all around the room, which is kind of fun. So like I don't think I have it set up right now for hand gestures, but you could walk around and have it follow you and do other cool stuff. My favorite gimbal is also by them. That's the Insta360 link. For on-the-go audio, I think Rode's got a great setup. I know DJI has a great one too. Fun little drone called the Avata, where you can put on goggles and fly it around. And then the one I probably use the most, which is the X3 from Insta360. So I feel like I'm working for Insta360 here, but that's just some fun stuff.
I know, little promo
yeah.
for Insta360.
Yeah, right. It's just a fun company. They make a lot of great quality stuff that I use all the time. And then lastly is just how to connect with us. So I'm a social diva. Hit me up on any of the sites and I'll happily connect with anybody.
Yes, you are, Luke. I've actually dropped all the links to where you can find them on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and the website into all the chats across all the platforms. So if you're interested in in tuning in and seeing what they're doing, even if you're just following along to see Luke's marketing strategy, because you can definitely see like where he's going. Like there'll be awareness, then there might be an event, the follow-up to the event, and just see what kind of content he's putting out there for his organization, and then mimicking that. I mean, really, it's not about reinventing the wheel, is it?
No, and even a lot of the verbiage I now use for press releases and things, I'm not the one writing it. I'm using AI to write it, and I'm just refining it, So don't feel like you have to take it all on yourself. Use the tools that are out there, use examples, kind of templates, that type of thing. There's so much out there that's it's available. The big challenge, I think, is when you see it all, sometimes you go, wow, that's a ton. Some people just go, I don't even know where to start, So that's why I try to simplify it to just, you got a phone, you got a computer, typically start with that. The rest of the gear and all that stuff is just, adding more fun.
You've always been a tech geek, you love tech, like you've always had the latest of everything, or this and this and this. So yeah, like having your phone, and we've done a bunch of sessions actually on Digital Boost about telling your brand story and, like scripting that, and like how to kind of get your message out there. So you can check out those resources on digitalboost.co.nz if you wanted to watch some of the sessions with John Mayberry in particular. And we're actually going to be running a session here in, I think, like a couple weeks with Stanley Henry from The Attention Seeker, and he's going to be showing how to edit video with AI tools. So taking out some of that work that a lot of people go, oh, I've got all this footage, but I don't really need all of it. I want to shrink it down, and then using some AI tools to be able to shrink it down. So that's going to be a cool session to tune in for. You can check that out. I believe it is up on the platform. If it's not, it will be up by the end of this week. Yeah. So Luke, I'd love to know, you've given us so much information here, and I want to just kind of wrap it in a little bit of a bow. And like, if you had to just give like a little bit of an inspirational moment of those people out there that are kind of going, I want to do this, but I'm not sure what to do, or, I've started, but I'm stuck, anything that you'd like to say to kind of get them going again would be amazing.
What you do matters. What you do in life matters a lot. So don't think it's meaningless anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think the amazing thing is that you work a full-time job. Like, this isn't a person that just does this for an income, your income. This is a side hustle that you do that doesn't bring you income. It is purely for fundraising and awareness. And you manage to juggle that on top of a full-time job with 3 kids, with one with a rare disease. Obviously you have a very strong partner, Liz, that's with you, and she's like a financial genius. So she handles all that kind of stuff, and a really supportive family that comes and wraps around you on the things that you're doing. But I think what you've really done is taken a situation that most people might crumble under and gone, you know what? I actually have a skill set that's going to make a change, not just for my family, but for others. And you've taken the time to, to put some of those skill sets into action in order to create a more positive impact on the world. And, I think one of the things that you've told me in the past is some of the things that you've given up. So, I mean, there's always, the price isn't always what you pay, it's what you give up. And, some of the things in your personal life that you've given up in order to make time for this fundraiser, I'd love to hear like what that is, because you spend a lot of time with family, So what are some of the things that you've done in order to create time?
I don't know new things. I don't know what's going on Netflix. I don't know. I'm not caught up on anything at all, unless it's Sing 2, Hotel Transylvania, something like that. Like, we watch those on a loop. I've probably seen Sing 2 with Johnny's big fight scene easily 1,000 times, easily. So like, it's just spending time with family. It's not so much that you're giving up something else. You're just reprioritizing. I'm so happy to have done that. And working mostly remotely now gives me a lot of opportunity to put him on the bus, and it's just awesome. When it comes to what, there are a few things that, of course, just there's time where you're like, oh man, like you kind of beat yourself up, like, oh, I have all this ambition to do this and that, or, to kind of launch whatever new initiative, whether that's on the nonprofit or for-profit side, give yourself a break. Like you're only human. Just try to do the best you can. Write it down, get back to it later, enjoy the moment when you can. And ultimately just, it's actually comes down to my wife's family motto. So her family were refugees from the Vietnam War, and they came over to the US after an amazing journey. And then the family that took them in, their family motto is always have fun. So we embrace that because it just fits with our family completely. So just no matter what you're doing, just always have fun as much as you can.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love having you on here. I love sharing your story, your family's story, and all the work that you've done. And this content doesn't just sit in the fundraising kind of nonprofit charitable kind of space. It sits across all small business, because a lot of small businesses are built, on in time that you are not working your full job. Most people start a small business. It starts as a little bit of a hobby. It kind of grows into a bit of a side hustle, and then it scales up into an actual business when they take the leap. And I think that, this is there's so many techniques in here that I don't really feel like it has to sit in that space, because anybody's going to get value from this session that's in small business, because you've talked about scaling even as well. So tell us about your upcoming event. We want to hear about it. We want to know how we can be involved in your story. We've got all the links, so go ahead and follow along. Cure JM for Liam, his story. Lots of content going up there. Luke, tell us about what you got coming up next.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump to that in one moment. I just want to go back to what you mentioned there about that this is business and fundraising. It's interchangeable. Sales and marketing, fundraising and advocacy / fundraising and awareness. They're interchangeable words. It's just a matter of a lot of times when you're working in the nonprofit space, you may not have a marketing budget. You may not have the ability to run a TV schedule or whatever to get your brand out there. So I'm assuming the same thing for small businesses. A lot of it's guerrilla marketing. A lot of it's like, your core group of what was the book, raving fans, I think it is. And it's like, basically, if you got 1,000 people in your corner, you are like indestructible. But what it takes to get there is a lot of storytelling, starting with why, kind of getting your brand out there, and just overall, like the mission behind what you're doing, that's could be in the nonprofit space, could be in the for-profit space. Just, it's so important. I mean, what is it? The average person gets hit with 10,000 marketing messages a day or some crazy statistic. We're checking our phones 250 times a day. Like, we are constantly pulled and distracted in a million directions, but also long form storytelling is blowing up. Podcasts that that you can dive deeper and not just have your 2-3 minute soundbite on the news. You can actually dig into a particular topic and learn about something, and just have it in your ear. That's blowing up and bigger than ever. So it's not that everyone's like attention is bopping around in every which way. It's just that there's a lot of things pulling at you, but I think people are kind of going back a step and just going, what's really important, taking the time for something that's a topic that you're really into, and then also being blissfully unaware of things that are not part of your North Star mission. That's okay. Like, I do not know the starting lineup of the Red Sox. Sorry, I don't. I just don't know.
You haven't watched Yellowstone.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I know Kevin Costner's in it. That's all I got, Yeah. I think the last thing I saw with him was like Dancing with Wolves. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure he's done stuff since then, but yeah.
Absolutely. I think that in this space, it's often, like our New Zealand small businesses, they do start out at that real grassroots kind of guerrilla marketing kind of style. What do you think about collaboration, and how much do you use collaboration within what you do?
Yeah, it's all about collaboration. While I might be the architect, doesn't mean that that's the most important role by any means, because you need to have, I'd say Liz and I, where we meet on this is I might be the executive producer, or the architect, and she might be the general contractor / project manager, because she's got a great mind for that. So, the way that we fundraise, actually, she does an amazing job with that, with the community that she's built and the families that she's able to bring to events. And she's also, on top of what we do with Liam, and our story with JM, she's also has been the longest serving president of a nonprofit in our town too, helping with kids kind of age 5 and under and getting them assimilated and, friends and all that kind of stuff and other families to connect with. And that's just been a great thing for us too, as a family. So it's definitely a duo in that way.
On a wider spectrum, because you you do a lot of things at places, and you've connected with football teams and things like that. How much, obviously, that collaboration really adds to the reach that you're putting out there. Is there certain organizations, is there a way that you target certain things that you want to do? Is there a strategy behind that? Or is it more like, hey, I'm just going to reach out to a whole bunch of places and see who kind of bites, and then I'm going to run with that? Or how much of it is actual strategy on who you pair with?
I'd say there's a bit of strategy, but more so it's just having that, sales background too of, oh, I'm at X event. Well, let me go right up and meet the director of that event or that CEO or whatever, and just not, having like a fear of having to introduce myself. And they love that you come up and introduce yourself as well too. So I'd say just going right to whoever's going to help, and also being helpful to them too. I mean, the amount of times that even with Boston Children's, they're like, oh, we love having you as a patient advocate because you bring all this, media marketing savvy, you connect us to all these other businesses. You help. I'm constantly introducing, one to the other. And a lot of these nonprofits, they don't know each other, same kind of thing in the rare disease community. They may not know of other ones that are doing a lot of great work too. And I'm just a pretty, oiled connector, if you will, in that way. Yeah.
We see that a lot in tech, everything works in silos. So it's they're over here trying to create change and get minorities and women in tech. And, they're over here trying to do the same thing, but not working together to create a bigger impact. So everybody wants that in their, pillars of what they're doing, but they're not actually combining forces. So do you think that, there is a space, obviously you think connecting them, but do you often do events with other charities, or do you feel like it's better to keep those other charities separate, or what's your viewpoint on that?
I like to collaborate as much as I possibly can. So Cure Jam is a very small nonprofit, but Boston Children's is a pretty formidable nonprofit in a good way. So a lot of times I'll try to do things where I'll be telling the Cure Jam story at a big Boston Children's event. We, for instance, more recently, just by having him be a patient advocate at Gillette Stadium, which is where the Patriots play, they did a big yoga event and they raised, I think, $450,000 for Boston Children's. We weren't actively that involved in it, but my son was one of the poster, children for it. And he's on the big Jumbotron and all that kind of stuff. So then me sharing that out, connecting with the, people that put that together helps tell our story in a bigger way. So just being open to sharing your story. And a lot of times I think families aren't all that comfortable sharing their story and being having the spotlight on them. So luckily we are. So that kind of thing helps out. And also to those, other larger nonprofits are always looking for family stories too, because it helps them with their own advocacy, awareness, fundraising, big gift kind of, charitable donation type things, because they want to relate to a physical human being or a family story.
Oh, this has been such a great session, Luke. I really appreciate it. I've been checking the chats. We're all good on questions. And I think that definitely comes down to the fact that you're a great communicator and have really spelled it out for us. Now, this slide deck that you've been using today, are you happy for us to put this up on Digital Boost so people can?
Absolutely, 100%.
Because there was lots of tools in there that I'm sure people would like to have a go at and in their own time. Check all the chats if you're looking for links. Contact support at digitalboost.co.nz if you are keen to get some help with some of the tools that are there, or you need anything else in your business needs. We are there to support you. We can even book one-on-one kind of video sessions or do a phone call, whatever works for you. Luke, you've streamed in from the US, and so we appreciate the fact that you're taking time out of that part of your day to join us here in the morning in NZ, and we wish you the best of luck and so much love to the Ryans and everything that they're doing. I am so inspired by you every day, and I appreciate you being in my life.
Thank you. You're the best. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure meeting you all, and hope to stay connected and help in any way I can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Ka kite.